Montserrat is a British overseas territory in the Caribbean. It is part of the Leeward Islands, the northern portion of the Lesser Antilles chain of the West Indies. Montserrat is about 16 kilometers, 10 miles, long and 11 kilometers, 7 miles, wide, with roughly 40 kilometers, 25 miles, of coastline. It is nicknamed the Emerald Isle of the Caribbean, both for its resemblance to coastal Ireland and for the Irish ancestry of many of its inhabitants. Montserrat is the only non-fully sovereign full member of the Caribbean Community and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. On 18 July 1995, the previously dormant Soufriere Hills volcano, in the southern part of the island, became active. Eruptions destroyed Montserrat's Georgian-era capital city of Plymouth. Between 1995 and 2000, two-thirds of the island's population was forced to flee, primarily to the United Kingdom, leaving fewer than 1,200 people on the island in 1997, rising to nearly 5,000 by 2016. The volcanic activity continues, mostly affecting the vicinity of Plymouth, including its docking facilities, and the eastern side of the island around the former W.H. Bramble Airport, the remnants of which were buried by flows from volcanic activity on the 11th of February 2010. An exclusion zone, encompassing the southern part of the island to as far north as parts of the Belem Valley, was imposed because of the size of the existing volcanic dome and the resulting potential for pyroclastic activity. Visitors are generally not permitted entry into the exclusion zone, but a view of the destruction of Plymouth can be seen from the top of Garibaldi Hill in Isles Bay. Relatively quiet since early 2010, the volcano continues to be closely monitored by the Montserrat Volcano Observatory. In 2015, it was announced that planning would begin on a new town and port at Little Bay on the northwest coast of the island. While additional plans proceeded, the center of government and businesses was moved to Braids. After a number of delays, including hurricanes Irma and Maria in 2017 and the COVID-19 pandemic beginning in early 2020, in June 2022, ground was broken on the Little Bay Port Development Project, a $28 million project funded by the UK and the Caribbean Development Bank.
Etymology.
In 1493, Christopher Columbus named the island Santa Mara de Montserrat, after the Virgin of Montserrat of the monastery of Montserrat near Barcelona in Catalonia, Spain. Montserrat means serrated mountain in Catalan.
History. Pre-colonial era.
Archaeological fieldwork in 2012 in Montserrat's Center Hills indicated there was an archaic, pre-Arawak, occupation between 2000 and 500 BCE. Later coastal sites show the presence of the Saladoid culture, until 550 CE. The native Caribs are believed to have called the island Aliuagana, meaning, land of the prickly bush. In 2016, 9 petroglyphs were discovered by local residents hiking in a wooded area near Soldier Gut. Another was discovered in 2018 in the same area of the island. The carvings are believed to be 10,001,500 years old. Early European period. In November 1493, Christopher Columbus passed Montserrat in his second voyage, after being told that the island was unoccupied due to raids by the Caribs. A number of Irishmen settled in Montserrat in 1632. Most came from nearby St. Kitts at the instigation of the island's governor Thomas Warner, with more settlers arriving later from Virginia. The first settlers appear to have been cultivators, each working his own little farm. The preponderance of Anglo-Irish in the first wave of European settlers led a leading legal scholar to remark that a nice question is whether the original settlers took with them the law of the Kingdom of Ireland insofar as it differed from the law of the Kingdom of England. The Irish, being historical allies of the French, especially in their qualified disdain of the English, invited the French to claim the island in 1666, although no troops were sent by France to maintain control. However, the French did attack and briefly occupy the island in the late 1660s. It was captured shortly afterwards by the English, and English control of the island was confirmed under the Treaty of Breda the following year. Despite the seizing by force of the island by the French, the island's legal status is that of a colony acquired by settlement, as the French gave up the claim to the island at Breda. A neo-feudal colony developed amongst the so-called Red Legs. The Anglo-Irish colonists began to transport both white and sub-Saharan African slaves for labor, as was common to most Caribbean islands. By the late 18th century, numerous plantations had been developed on the island. 18th century, there was a brief French attack on Montserrat in 1712. On 17 March 1768, a slave rebellion failed, but their efforts were remembered. Slavery was abolished in 1834. In 1985, the people of Montserrat made St. Patrick's Day a 10-day public holiday to commemorate the uprising. Festivities celebrate the culture and history of Montserrat in song, dance, food and traditional costumes. In 1782, during the American Revolutionary War, as America's first ally, France captured Montserrat in their war of support of the Americans. The French, not intent on truly colonizing the island, then agreed to return the island to Great Britain under the 1783 Treaty of Paris. New crops and politics. Britain abolished slavery in Montserrat and its other territories effective August 1834. During the 19th century, falling sugar prices had an adverse effect on the island's economy, as Brazil and other nations competed in the trade. The first lime tree orchards on the island were planted in 1852 by a local planter, Mr. Burke. Later, in 1857, the British philanthropist Joseph Sturge bought a sugar estate to prove it was economically viable to employ paid labor rather than slaves. Numerous members of the Sturge family bought additional land. In 1869, the family established the Montserrat Company Limited and planted key lime trees, started the commercial production of lime juice, with more than 100,000 gallons produced annually by 1895, set up a school, and sold parcels of land to the inhabitants of the island. The pure lime juice was transported in casks to England, where it was clarified and bottled by Evans, Sons and Company, of Liverpool, with a trademark on each bottle intended to guarantee quality to the public. Much of Montserrat came to be owned by smallholders. From 1871 to 1958, Montserrat was administered as part of the Federal Crown Colony of the British Leeward Islands, becoming a province of the short-lived West Indies Federation from 1958 to 1962. The first Chief Minister of Montserrat was William Henry Bramble of the Montserrat Labour Party from 1960 to 1970. He worked to promote labour rights and boost tourism to the island, and Montserrat's original airport was named in his honour. However, Bramble's son Percival Austin Bramble was critical of the way tourist facilities were being constructed, and he subsequently set up his own party, the Progressive Democratic Party, which went on to win the 1970 Montserratian general election, with Percival Bramble serving as Chief Minister from 1970 to 1978. The period 1978 to 1991 was dominated politically by Chief Minister John Osborne and his People's Liberation Movement. His brief flirtation with possibly declaring independence never materialized. On 10 May 1991, the Caribbean Territories' Abolition of Death Penalty for Murder Order 1991 came into force, formally abolishing the death penalty for murder on Montserrat. Corruption allegations within the PLM party resulted in the collapse of the Osborne government in 1991, with Reuben Mead becoming the new chief minister. As a result, early elections were called. In 1995, Montserrat was devastated by the catastrophic volcanic eruptions of the Soufriere Hills, which destroyed the capital city of Plymouth, and necessitated the evacuation of a large part of the island. Many Montserratians emigrated abroad, mainly to the United Kingdom, though in recent years some have started returning. The eruptions rendered the entire southern half of the island uninhabitable, and it is currently designated an exclusion zone with restricted access. Criticism of the Montserratian government's response to the disaster led to the resignation of Chief Minister Bertrand Osborne in 1997, after only a year in office, and being replaced by David Brandt, who remained in office until 2001. Since leaving office, Brandt has been the subject of multiple criminal investigation into alleged sex offences with minors. He was found guilty of 6 counts of sexual exploitation and sentenced to 15 years in July 2021. John Osborne returned as chief minister following victory in the 2001 election, being ousted by Lowell Lewis of the Montserrat Democratic Party in 2006. Reuben Mead returned to office in 2009 to 2014. During his term, the post of chief minister was replaced with that of premier. In the autumn of 2017, Montserrat was not hit by Hurricane Irma and sustained only minor damage from Hurricane Maria. Since November 2019, Easton Taylor Farrell of the Movement for Change and Prosperity Party has been the island's premier.
Politics and government.
Montserrat is an internally self-governing overseas territory of the United Kingdom. The United Nations Committee on Decolonization includes Montserrat on the United Nations list of non-self-governing territories. The island's head of state is King Charles III, represented by an appointed governor. Executive power is exercised by the government, whereas the Premier is the head of government. The Premier is appointed by the Governor from among the members of the Legislative Assembly, which consists of 9 elected members. The leader of the party with a majority of seats is usually the one who is appointed. Legislative power is vested in both the government and the Legislative Assembly. The Assembly also includes 2 ex officio members, the Attorney General and Financial Secretary. The judiciary is independent of the executive and the legislature. Administrative divisions for the purposes of local government. Montserrat is divided into 3 parishes. Going north to south, they are Parish of St. Peter *, Parish of St. George *, Parish of St. Anthony. The locations of settlements on the island have been vastly changed since the volcanic activity began. Only the parish of St. Peter in the northwest of the island is now inhabited, with a population of between 4,000 and 6,000, the other 2 parishes being still too dangerous to inhabit. A significantly more up-to-date administrative division type would be the 3 census regions, primarily used for the population census. Going north to south, these are Northern Region, 2,369 pop, * Central Region, 1,666 pop, * south of Nantes River, 887 pop. For census purposes, these are further divided into 23 enumeration districts. Policing is primarily the responsibility of the Royal Montserrat Police Service. Military and defence. The defence of Montserrat is the responsibility of the United Kingdom. The Royal Navy maintains a ship on permanent station in the Caribbean, HMS Medway, and additionally sends another Royal Navy or Royal Fleet auxiliary ship as a part of the Atlantic Patrol, North, tasking. These ships' main mission in the region is to maintain British sovereignty for the overseas territories, provide humanitarian aid and disaster relief during disasters such as hurricanes, which are common in the area, and conduct counter-narcotics operations. In October 2023, the destroyer HMS Dauntless, which had temporarily replaced Medway on her Caribbean tasking, visited the territory in order to assist local authorities in preparing for the climax of the hurricane season. Royal Montserrat Defence Force. The Royal Montserrat Defence Force is the home defence unit of the British Overseas Territory of Montserrat. Raised in 1899, the unit is today a reduced force of about 40 volunteer soldiers, primarily concerned with civil defence and ceremonial duties. The unit has a historical association with the Irish Guards. Communications. The island is served by landline telephones, fully digitalised, with 3,000 subscribers, and by mobile cellular, with an estimated number of 5,000 handsets in use. An estimated 2,860 users have Internet access. These are July 2016 estimates. Public radio service is provided by Radio Montserrat. There is a single television broadcaster, PTV. Cable and satellite television service is available. The UK postcode for directing mail to Montserrat is MSR followed by 4 digits according to the destination town. For example, the postcode for Little Bay is MSR 1120. Geography. The island of Montserrat is located approximately 25 miles, 40 kilometers, southwest of Antigua, 13 miles, 21 kilometers, southeast of Redonda, a small island owned by Antigua and Barbuda, and 35 miles, 56 kilometers, northwest of the French overseas region of Guadeloupe. Beyond Redonda lies Nevis, part of St. Kitts and Nevis, about 30 miles, 48 kilometers, to the northwest. It comprises 104 square kilometers, 40 square miles, and is gradually increasing owing to the buildup of volcanic deposits on the southeast coast. The island is 16 kilometers, 9.9 miles, long and 11 kilometers, 6.8 miles, wide, and consists of a mountainous interior surrounded by a flatter littoral region, with rock cliffs rising 15 to 30 meters, 49 to 98 feet, above the sea, and the number of smooth-bottomed sandy beaches scattered among coves on the western, Caribbean Sea, side of the island. The major mountains are, from north to south, Silver Hill, Katy Hill in the Center Hills Range, the Soufriere Hills and the South Soufriere Hills. The Soufriere Hills volcano is the island's highest point. Its pre-1995 height was 915 meters, 3,002 feet. However, it has grown after the eruption due to the creation of a lava dome, with its current height being estimated at 1,050 meters, 3,440 feet. The 2011 estimate by the CIA indicates that 30% of the island's land is classified as agricultural, 20% as arable, 25% as forest, and the balance as other. Montserrat has a few tiny offshore islands, such as Little Redonda off its north coast and Pinnacle Rock and Statue Rock off its east. Volcano and exclusion zone. In July 1995, Montserrat's Soufriere Hills volcano, dormant for centuries, erupted and soon buried the island's capital, Plymouth, in more than 12 meters, 39 feet, of mud, destroyed its airport and docking facilities, and rendered the southern part of the island, now termed the exclusion zone, uninhabitable and not safe for travel. The southern part of the island was evacuated and visits are severely restricted. The exclusion zone also includes two sea areas adjacent to the land areas of most volcanic activity. After the destruction of Plymouth and disruption of the economy, more than half of the population left the island, which also lacked housing. During the late 1990s, additional eruptions occurred. On 25 June 1997, a pyroclastic flow traveled down Mosquito Gut. This pyroclastic surge could not be restrained by the gut and spilled out of it, killing 19 people who were in the officially evacuated Streatham village area. Several others in the area suffered severe burns. In recognition of the disaster, in 1998, the people of Montserrat were granted full residency rights in the United Kingdom, allowing them to migrate if they chose. British citizenship was granted in 2002. For a number of years in the early 2000s, the volcano's activity consisted mostly of infrequent ventings of ash into the uninhabited areas in the south. The ash falls occasionally extended into the northern and western parts of the island. In the most recent period of increased activity at the Soufriere Hills volcano, from November 2009 through February 2010, ash vented and there was a volcanion explosion that sent pyroclastic flows down several sides of the mountain. Travel into parts of the exclusion zone was occasionally allowed, though only by a license from the Royal Montserrat Police Force. Since 2014, the area has been split into multiple subzones with varying entry and use restrictions, based on volcanic activity, some areas even being, in 2020, open 24 hours and inhabited. The most dangerous zone, which includes the former capital, remains forbidden to casual visitors due to volcanic and other hazards, especially due to the lack of maintenance in destroyed areas. It is legal to visit this area when accompanied by a government-authorized guide. The northern part of Montserrat has